Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for what is now my third Zoom webinar. And it's the biggest yet. At the moment, we have almost 80 people who are joining us. And I wouldn't be surprised if some more people will be still logging on in the next few minutes. So it's quite a big one here from my workroom in the Netherlands, where it's gotten dark outside and it's evening time, but I think most of you are from elsewhere, and that means that you are still ready to face the rest of your day, and let's hope it is a good one, and let's also hope that this is a good start. Because we are a bigger group today, I think most of you know a bit about my work. Some of you know absolutely nothing about my beadwork, but you just know me. But so maybe an introduction is in order. First of all, I am Floor Caspers, and yes, Floor is my original Dutch name. Nothing I can do about that one. And I started doing beadwork. I actually looked it up. I started doing beadwork 8 years ago. What happened is I'd already been researching beads, studying beads, learning about beads, and I basically wanted to know why are all these people fascinated with these small beads? What are they making with them? How does it work? So I just started some simple things with some of the small beads I had. I actually started with bugle beads first, and it kind of went from there. I had it kind of took its own direction, and here we are 8 years later, being part of, for example, Battle of the Beadsmith. What we're going to be doing in the next hour is I've invited you to come listen and see, to hear me explain how I worked on one specific project. It's the first time I've actually talked in such depth about one particular project, which is interesting to do, to show you how my process is. It made me think again about how do I make certain choices. And I'll be doing that with a combination of pictures and videos and me answering your questions and talking in between. About questions and interactions, a few practical things. First of all, we have the chat open, and beware if you want it to be seen to everyone. You need to change when it says to, you need to change that from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. If not, only I can see it, and you're like, wait, why are these people not responding to me? I said something really, really funny. That's because only I can read it, and I am actually doing the whole webinar, so I can't respond to all of that. So make sure that you address it to all panelists and all attendees, because otherwise nobody else sees it. When you have any questions for me, because I cannot see you, your videos are not on. I know you're here. I have a count of attendees. I have a list of people. I know you're here, but I cannot see you. And if you have any questions for me, please put those in the Q&A. So there's a Q&A button in your webinar, and you can ask your questions for me there, and I will try as much as I can to answer them while I'm talking on the specific subject. If not, I'll spend the last bit of this webinar trying to answer most of your questions. So that's basically what we're doing. So Nina already said she loves my necklace, and I actually have it in the presentation as well. And this is one of the, believe it or not, one of the first necklaces in beadwork that I made. But I promise not to be looking at the chat, but it's like in my right there, I can see it. Anyway, I already explained a little bit to you about who I am and what I do with beadwork. Next to me is Peter, and he will quickly. Some of you know him, and I know some of you would miss him if you wouldn't see him. So he's joining me. He's surrounded me with all these lights here, so you can see as much as you can. Before we go into a bit about this specific project, as I mentioned, I started doing beadwork to learn more about the history of beadwork, why it's why so many cultures do it, and I'm getting distracted because my cat is making noise. So I'm going to ask Peter to give the cat some sweets, so they will leave me be. And what I like about beadwork is that it's small and it's portable, And it's the fact that I like it to be portable is also one of the reasons why my projects turn out the way that they do. I usually work both in my glass work and in my bead work by making a lot of small components and then putting them together later. So that means I can just have a little box with my tools and my beads, and I can make stuff on the go. I've not, of course, been traveling as much as I would in previous years. So now I've spread out more, but it's a good way to be able to do artistic things, ease your mind while you are on the go. I'm going to start sharing my screen with you again so you can see the presentation that I had started for you. So here we are. There we go. So this, I have to go back way. I getting used to a few of these things. There we go. I'll get there. So this is where the entire inspiration for my beadwork piece came from. This was 3 years ago. Peter and I were in Jodhpur in India, and we walked on the market and we saw these beautiful little melons. They're not big. Most of them are like 2 or 3 inches. And it turns out that I looked up the name. Some people helped me on Facebook with thinking of what they are, but I really love their colors. I love the textures. And that's what I do. That's where I get my inspiration for colors from. I take pictures of beautiful things. And my idea is also always, when the colors come out in nature to be together, they're intended to be together. There's no clashing of colors when they actually make it in nature. So how did I get from that, the little melons, the little cucumbers, to this? Well, that's what I hope to answer to you today. So Catherine says in the chat, the cucumber melons, they are not. They are actually a very special indigenous type of squash to this specific region of India, and they apparently have medicinal qualities and all that. You can only get them there. They look like a lot of other squash type things, but they're quite remarkable. And I should have looked this up so I could explain it to you more, but they're very, very special. So that's step number one. I get a picture, I get my inspiration, and I start thinking of what I want to do. I start thinking of colors. And I am very fortunate to have a lot of colors. I generally only at the moment work with Miyuki seed beads. And these are all made with Delica beads. And for those of you who don't know them, they are tiny. They're about 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters, which is about less than 1/10 of an inch, quite a bit less actually. So what I do is I get my picture and I start thinking of size, shape, color, and to see, do I have enough beads? Usually, as I said, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of colors. Usually I have enough beads, and I start thinking what goes together. I often work by mixing colors, making like a little bead soup of colors that I like together, so it gets a more natural feel. I didn't do that here because I wasn't sure how big my entire piece was going to be yet. So I didn't want to mix all my colors in together and then get stuck with a lot of beads. Because you have to know this piece was made specifically for the Battle of the Beadsmith, which is put on by Stephen Weiss. And he does it every year, and it's a competition where bead workers have 2 months to come up with a project. So you have a start date and you have a finish date. It's tricky to do beadwork like this in on a deadline, because you never know how much time you're going to get. You never know how much time it's going to take. So I didn't want to mix all my colors together and then realize I hadn't used even half of it, or by the time the deadline was up. But I did use a way to make sure that it's a little bit more lively than if you use just one color. So that's what I did. I picked out my colors, and yeah, and I see some people who are having bead envy. Yeah, I do. I have a lot of beads. I got them at a wholesaler. I got my first batch of many colored beads that allowed me to work like this by matching colors from Japan itself, going to the Miyuki factory store in Japan and saying, could I have a little bit of everything? And then early this year, I was fortunate to sell one of my big beadwork pieces. And I decided that that money was going to go back into beads, literally go back into beads. And I got a wholesale order of so many colors. And then the actual planning starts once I have all the colors together. I decided that this was the shape that I was going to work with. They are little almost canoe type shapes. So they are, I'm going to show you how they are made. And they are, they have the tips stick up. So a canoe is a good way, an oval. So it's like an oval with a curve to it. And as you can see here, that I mentioned that I do still mix my colors a little bit. So every little leaf, and I used 505 of these little components. These are actually my leftovers. I used rows of one color, and then I added one row of another color. This specific shape is something that I learned from this book, Diane Fitzgerald's Shaped Beadwork. She has a whole bunch of different shapes in there. I don't know if she came up with this shape, but that's where I got it from. So that's the book I wanted to show you. And it's what it does. It's basically what I would call tubular or circular peyote stitch. And then to add corners, you put in 2 beads in between, like herringbone stitch, where you want it, instead of it being round, where you want to add corners. So this one has 2 corners added. So that's what I did with this shape. And this is not the first time that I worked with this shape. So I started with it already by making actually the necklace that I am wearing today. It's, see if that's the, see, I have a little video of this one. This is again actually inspired by fall colors, but oddly enough, the colors are quite different from the one that I am wearing now. This is just making all of these little shapes, these pointed ovals, and then stringing them. And in this case, having them strung pointed down. I'm going to go back just a little bit so you can. So here I have them strung pointed down. So the thread of the actual necklace goes through 3 of the beads sticking out on the outside. And that way you add a bit of volume and you get the necklace. And I made a second one, which is actually pointed the other way. You see how they're still all strung together, different sizes. This one is inspired by fire. And they all point towards the top, like flames. So I think this basic little shape actually can do a lot in the fall of the bead, fall in my big piece. It actually reminds me of scales and leaves. But in this one, it's like the flames going up. So you can do a lot with that. By the way, I've just paused the video for a bit. I can still see in the chat that not everyone is, either you're all trying to communicate with me, which apparently is working, but if you want everyone else to see what you are writing, please put in, change it from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, because otherwise the others can't see it. The name of the book is asked by Robin, but I suggest that in general you ask your questions in the Q&A. What the name of the book is, the name is Shaped Beadwork by Diane Fitzgerald. So this piece was actually made to attach this little box. So this is a little metal box that my sister, one of my sisters, gave to me. Inside she'd written in Dutch, happiness, geluk. So basically what she gave me was a little box of happiness. And what I did is I beaded around it. It can't open anymore. So I've contained the happiness that I can now wear whenever I need it. So this is a little bit about what you can do with these different basic shapes. Here's all the materials I use. So I start with Delica beads. Usually I either use Delica beads or I use size 15 seed beads, also from Yuki. And apart from beads, you're going to need needles. I use the quite affordable John James needles, beading needles, and I use more expensive tulip needles. Somehow they tend to get mixed up when I use them because sometimes it seems I'm organized with my beads, but not so much. I tend to lose stuff and lose track of which is which, but I'll just use any needle, and even if they get crooked, I don't really mind that much. So that's on the needles. The thread I use is pretty much all of it is Fireline. And then I use this little gizmo, and I'm going to show you later on what I use it for. This is an electronic cigarette lighter, and you can get them, for example, on eBay. It's not exactly this end when it's charged, and I forgot, goes red hot to melt the ends of your thread, and this is where you can charge it. A little bead scoop, a little scissors. I use all sorts of scissors, whatever works for me, I'll use it. And then there's the picture. There's a slightly longer video of me making the pointed ovals. This is also a good time to get some of your questions in. So when I make a piece of beadwork like this, so basically, as I said, it's like tubular peyote. So you get your beads on there and you make them into a loop. So I think that's actually a reef knot or a double knot. This is smaller than the ones I've made. This is just a small one, but I've made it into a knot. So we have the question of, I didn't see you count. No, because this is just an example I used for you. And actually for the larger piece, I didn't count my beads either. I had a set. I used a different bead tray for it. I had set down, I'm pausing it for a bit, and I'd set down how long I needed each string of beads to be before I started. That means there's a slight size difference in them because you can have one more or one less. Some people mind that. Some people want it to be very precise. I don't. And for this one, it was just to do a little example for you guys this morning, filmed by Peter. So I just wanted to show you the system of how it's made. So at first I put it through a few to start with, and then in between two beads, so not skipping any, I put two beads. So that's basically the herringbone part. And as I said, this is not a full tutorial on how to make this. Also because I know we have quite a varied audience. Some people, this is like easy peasy. Other people are like, huh? Needle, thread, how do I start? And then it would be too fast. So this is just you watching me work basically. So at first I did the two beads, and then I did, now I'm doing skip one and put one bead in. A question is, does each side have to be the same number of beads? Yes, ideally, yes. For the sizes of the leaves that I made for the big piece, sometimes it's one off and then you need to kind of adjust. I didn't mind it being a little bit different. So if you are somebody who wants it to be fully perfect, you might be better off counting the beads before. If not, then do what I do and just give it a general length. We have another question if this webinar will be available later to rewatch. Yes, it will be. It will be a few weeks because technically we should really not be showing these pieces from the Battle of the Beadsmith, any more pictures before the actual battle is finished. So I'm giving you like a sneak peek, well, a sneak peek to almost 100 people, but so I will be posting it, but that'll be a few weeks when the battle is over. So I'm starting to get ready to finish up my, which is technically my third row, because when it comes to peyote stitch, you, the first, when you have your first ring, that's actually row number 1 and 2. And for each second row, you keep skipping one. Each next row, you keep skipping one. So we come back to the first point that I made. And there we go. And then I add 2 beads in between, so not skipping a bead, add 2 beads, and then I keep going back to the regular, and then I kind of wiggle it into space. Yeah, Deborah says that's quite a sneak peek. Yeah, me talking about 1 hour about how I did this, that's more than just sharing a few pictures. So Sandy wants to know, when you are beading in your studio, what do you think about? Do I listen to music? Do I watch TV? I do a combination of listening to podcasts or watching Netflix. So, but then I can only do Netflix that is either in English or in Dutch, because I basically use it as radio. So if it's in French, I'll get too distracted, and there's either no beading or I don't see any of the movies, so that doesn't really make sense. Kristen wanted to know if this is a bead soup. No, this is one color, but because it's so sparkly, this is a silver lined color. It actually looks like it has different shades to it, but it's not. So that's just me beading away. This is also the moment where Peter was like, my hands are getting heavy. And I think I told him, well, not much longer. What I do, both when I have, when I work with a bead soup, for example, for netting, when you pick up 5 beads at once, I usually, I don't pick up 1 bead. I go with my needle through my little pile of beads. So I'll see how much I pick up, and I use the same when I only have to pick up 1. So here's a close-up of what it looks like. I'm going to show you that again. So that was all real time. Some people say that they think I work quite fast. So this was, I think this video was about a little under 5 minutes. So that's how long it takes me to get one of these done. Another question is, do I focus on it completely if I do a big piece like this? Or do I have other projects to use as a break from it? During this battle piece, I needed every single day, I needed every single minute to be able to get this done, making 500 big pieces. So the pieces that I used for that one is more than 5 minutes each. So that it was just, I hope I get this finished, let's make as much as I can. But it's actually I usually work like that. I usually work only on one project, but during this COVID time, I do have to say my mind has wandered a bit more. That means I do have some half-finished projects laying around, which is uncommon for me. And I also have one project that I'll show you at the end. Remind me if I forget. That is actually COVID specific, and that I work on pretty much every day. So that was the piece. I was going to show you how I use the little electric lighters. So when I run out of thread, if you make me a project, you run out of thread a lot. A little leaf like this you can make with a single piece of thread. But if you need to connect new thread, I get the one end, I get the new thread, and I make a reef knot. So that is 1 knot over the other, and then I pull it together. I get the 2 little ends, and I get my little gizmo. And as you see here, now it's charged, it's red hot, and I melt the end into a tiny, tiny ball. I'm showing you how tiny, tiny the balls are. They're tiny balls. And then I pull it tight. And this is all that's left. This is all that is needed to connect the 2 threads. So when you pull it, that's what you do. A question is where I got this little gizmo. I got this one, I think, from eBay, Amazon. Just look for electronic cigarette lighters and you will find them. So I know there's a lot of debate in the beading community on should you be knotting, should you be weaving in your threads, what works, what doesn't work. This works for me. I hate weaving in threads. I think quite a few people do. And especially if I do large beadwork pieces that are continual. So here I have the individual components, but if I do large pieces continual, this saves me so much time. And it also saves me from wanting to use a long piece of thread, which then is more easy to get tangled up. It's worse on your arms and on your shoulder. So for me, this is really helpful, and it works with a fire line, and I've been told it works with some other types of thread as well, but not all. So test it. And what I do is when I pull it, I pull it quite strong to make sure that it holds. And if it doesn't hold, I cut the knot out and I do it again. And if I start working and the knot is too big, I do the same. I cut it out and I make one with slightly smaller blobs. This knot works, it's invisible, and it can go through size 15 seed beads. So it can, it really works. I use it with my size 15 beadwork. So that is the knotting. And now we come up with how I planned this whole piece. So I started with this basic shape. I knew kind of what the size was and what I was trying to figure out, because there's quite a bit that goes into planning a piece like this. And I hope that that's something that might inspire you into thinking newly about how you could make something. So I thought about, so if I want to be making a big piece out of this, how much surface do they take? How do I make this? So I started cutting pieces out of paper, out of like the same size. I enrolled the help of my sister, another sister, than the one who gave me the box of happiness, who's a mathematics teacher. And I asked, so is there a method? I have this pointed oval, can I calculate? And they are like overlapping, and how does that work? And she basically said, well, you'd best just draw it out on graph paper. And that's the easiest way to do it. So that's what I did. I drew it out on graph paper. So how they are like, because they do overlap. And then I calculated how much square centimeter-ish, square-ish footage. I don't think that's the right word, squares. Anyway, we're going to go with surface, how much surface one single piece would take, and then how it works when they overlap, because you lose all the little bits, and then how much I would need for a big piece. And I did do the math that I would need at least 400, but preferably 500 to 600. And in the end, I landed on 505. So that's how my planning went. And then it would just basically bead, 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 bead everywhere. This is my, my yard. You can see there when it was just fixed up and full in summer bloom with bright colors. And that is my little trailer, which is my glass studio. So that's where I do my other art. So sitting outside, doing my work. I showed you, those who follow me on Facebook saw this picture already. That's the same cat that was just making the noise. I have two, but this one is the noisiest and also the most interested in my beadwork. So when he's like this, he's allowed. When he gets in one of his moods, he will start eating the thread, which is not healthy for cats. So then either I have to stop or I have to stop him. And generally, as you know, stopping a cat from doing something is not an easy task. And then sitting outside in a cafe with a nice espresso. And then here you can see it's going wrong here, can't you? You can see he's eyeing those little leaves. He's like, they are mine. So I think this was probably a picture I took quickly before pulling everything away. And that's what happens when you make a lot of them. And this is quite an important step. So I'd made quite a few of these little pieces, and then I needed to see how am I going to put them together. I knew I wanted them to overlap because the idea was like wings or scales, and I wanted it to be movable. But you can't really test your concept until you have quite a few examples. So I got quite a few, and then I started thinking of how am I going to be putting these together. And my general idea was that it was going to be a fairly flat piece. I was like, I'm going to connect all of these and it's going to lay flat and it can be around me like a shawl. It works slightly different because as soon as I realized when I started putting them together that because they're so curved, the little shapes, they go very differently if you turn it upside down. And I'll be showing you a little bit more of that in a minute. So this was an important step. This is like really the testing phase. Does it work? How do I connect them? Does it make me happy? Do they move enough? But is it strong enough? All of those types of questions that are that are important if you get this to work. And in the end, it worked out differently than I thought it would, but it did work out. So after I'd been making all of these, it was time to do planning, deciding on the colors. Because as I said, I used about 50 different Miyuki Delica colors, but I changed them with the little line of one other color in between, and I wanted to see how they would match up. So the color testing and color coordinating is quite an important step here. So I would lay them all out, see, is there any color that really stands out so it doesn't really fit in, or is there a color that I don't have enough of to get a full-on balance? So somebody asked, is that me? You? Peter. Oh, Peter. What?
No, that's someone who's called me.
Oh, somebody who's called me wants to. I'm like, wait, did I ask a question in the Q&A? 50 colors. Yes, I used 50 different bead colors in here. You can make this with one color. That could actually be really cool. I'd make it in black then. Make it all black and maybe one color tip on the tips. That would be cool. But I used 50 different colors. It's Mark English. Of course it is. Hi, Mark. So matching the colors, and then I pile them all up because of course that's what it's going to look like in the end, to see if the colors have a flow to them. And I can already see some examples in where I had them put together here and I'm like, no, that's not working. So I change it up again. This is the final setup that I decided on, the final color match. And then I put them in these little hanks. And then I started by putting them all together. And that's a lot of beads. So I think some of you have seen this video before because I did post it online. And this is me connecting them. I got the great advice from, I think it was Kath Thomas, on getting my thread caught, because this has like the leaves all over the place. So I keep getting my thread caught, especially when you have a longer thread. Keep getting my thread caught in the piece itself. So you should put it in a baggie and then you can just work on where you're needing it. As you can see here, it's difficult to explain, is that I work row by row. So I go to the middle of one, I attach a new one by the end, by the point, and then I go back and forth a few times to attach it again to the other one. So that way, they are only attached, this is a bit difficult to understand, but they're only attached, all of them, by the row below them and the row next to them. They're not attached by 4 points, which you might think of because they have 4 sides. They have the 2 middle sides and the 2 pointy sides. But that allows it to still feel moving around like this. A question is, are they attached peyote style? I don't really know what that means. Are they attached peyote style? What I did is, with connecting them, I added no beads. I put in, I wove through the outside rim of the piece to come out at the B where I needed to connect the other one. So it's, there's a lot, and that's one thing that I was glad that I realized that I was going to need some time for this connecting them, because instead of just connecting them with a little knot, I went through pretty much the whole piece again, the outside row, so one full row to attach it to the next one. This video should give you some idea of, and I should be showing it to you live, but this is better for the light, shows you a little bit of what it really looks up close, how it lays. You can see they're all like little scales or feathers on top of each other. And there's one naughty one, but I can put that one back. And you see that first bit that I showed you, that's what I thought it was going to look like. And then when I had it finished, it kept rolling and twisting on itself. And it gave me all these different types of shapes that I wasn't really expecting. But then again, I noticed that I really like that too. So sometimes the beadwork can surprise you. So from one side to the next, it looks quite different. So here it has the sharp pointy bits. The other side is more soft. So it's like a concave side and a convex side that it has to it, because all the individual components are curved the same way. And here is another one where you can really go in to see the I keep confusing convex and concave. Well, the one that goes this way. And you can also see that's quite hard to see where one color stops and the other one ends. I like to mix them up a little bit, so it's not just one row green, one row the next color. I kind of switch them so it feels more gradual. And you see how it falls, because they're only connected, as I said, on 2 points. They fall loosely, the leaves fall loosely individually. So there we go. I just wanted you to have like a sense of, because I know it's, there you go, stupid, go back. I know it's nice to be able to touch something, and I wanted you to have a little bit of that experience yourself. With me touching it, it kind of feels like you're here touching it. So those are some of the pictures of what it looks like when it's worn. It's really different depending on how you move it, how you fold it. So I like that. And this is what I would like to call a happy surprise. As I said, I'd intended it to be flat, but it got these beautiful curves. And when I saw it like this, it reminded me of a lotus flower, how all the little petals go around the little flower. So sometimes and I recommend this to people. Sometimes when you have a piece and you're happy with it, but you're not entirely sure, if you manage to take good photographs of it, I take all my photographs with my iPhone, and I do it on a black surface. I think beadwork looks really nice on a black surface, and you can kind of like fall in love with your piece because when you look at it like this, it makes you look at it differently. So Mark wanted to know, when I do connect them, do I not periodically by section? For this, I actually made smaller sections and then connected the sections. So I think I made, let me think, I had 505 pieces. I'd actually made 500 little leaves, and I made them in 5 sections to put together. But one of the sections, because they are like a zigzag pattern, how they put together, I realized that I missed one row because I'd done it wrong. So I needed to add 5 more in that row. So that's how I came to 505. So all of those are connected with one thread that I keep adding to with knots. And when those 5 pieces were finished, I would put them all together. So if one thread were to break, 4/5 would still be in one piece. But in general, these, because they are made of smaller components, anything can be fixed. And I do like that, because even though Fireline is very strong and I've had really good results with Fireline, it would be quite, if it were to break, I can fix it. I always say I can make it, I can fix it. So that's, and I really like this picture too. That came out really nice because it makes you look at the same piece in a different way again. And this is my real favorite picture. It was me. We had to take, so usually I don't take pictures of the piece with myself, but for the Battle of the Beadsmith, it's quite, it's kind of tradition that you get a model to do it. Last year I got a friend to do it who models it beautifully, what I had made last year. And this time I didn't have time, and it was COVID time and all that. So we just went out into the park, and I saw these colors on the leaves, and I was like, yeah, this is the perfect spot. And I think you can see that I'm enjoying this piece here. I'm going to stop screen sharing so you get the whole view of me, because I'll be showing you the piece as well. And we have a question: how long is it? I should know this, shouldn't I? Oh, Peter's going to be holding it up behind me, I think.
I might have to.
Oh, he says it's about 1.25 meters, so that would be about 5 feet.
No.
No? Yes.
No,
okay, about 4 feet then. 4.5 feet. So this is what it actually looks like when you get to see it. Oops. When you get to see it and you get to see it. See, now you get to see it really up close. So that is what it looks like. That is what it looks like when I wear it. See, that's that picture again. And you can see how they all like curl up, all the little bits. If I was to wear this, see, I'm not going to any fancy parties at the moment, but if I was to go into a fancy party, especially if it's a party with beadworkers, I don't think I'd get anywhere. The question is, have I weighed it? No, I haven't weighed it, but I do know how many beads are in here, because there are, each petal has 200 beads. And with 505 petals, that means it's over 100,000 beads. And that means, feels less, but that means it would weigh about a pound. And because it, but because it's not as if you're dangling a pound from your neck, because it's, you don't feel it. I have heavy pieces that, like with glass beads, or the big collar type pieces that are like 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds. But this one, you don't even feel the weight, because it's like it's like textile. We have another question: if I will be sharing the recording. Yes, I will be posting this on YouTube, and I will put the link out. I'm just playing with it now to distract you all. I'll be putting the video online in a few weeks after the battle is finished. We have another question: if I have fashion designers wanting to show my beadwork with their models and clothing. I have not yet. However, I do think a piece similar to this, or inspired on this, will be part of 1 and maybe 2 fashion shows. One is the Glass Art Fashion Show at the GAS conference, and that was supposed to be this year. No, that was supposed to be 2021. That's being done later on. Peter says another one of my pieces has been worn at a fashion show in Borneo with the Borneo International Bead Conference. The question is, does it curl the other way? So no, it doesn't, because like this, see how it holds its own shape. It's strong that way. So it only rolls inwards, which is typical to how the shape works. It's just a big pile of beads, isn't it? I did a small interview for a local, maybe some of you've seen it, for a local news station, and they asked, so tell me how much thread is in it, how much beads is in it, all of that. So I kept saying that to her, and she said, oh, and then you get this. And I was like, no, then you put in 200 hours of work, because otherwise all you've got is a pile of beads and thread. You do need to put in the hours, but this does kind of feel like a nice pile of beads. How do I ensure smooth color blending between the sections? The easy answer is just get so many colors and then play with it. But you can also have color blending where you just have two colors, but for example, mix the colors. So so one of the things is get as many colors as you can, but another one is change from one color to the other, no matter what you do. If it's just like a peyote strip where you want to go from one color to the next and you want it to look gradual, always go slower than you think. So so some people, for example, when they want to go from one to, for example, black, you want to go from red to black, they think, okay, so I'm using 80% of my piece in red, and then I'm going to go to the black, and I'm going to use only a little bit, like 10% or 20%, to go to the next color. You don't want that. If you want it to be gradual, you need a much longer, you need to start thinking about adding the other color earlier. So we have another question, if I can do something on color blending again. I might do another one again. So who knows, because I do like talking about my colors and how I mix it. And at the moment, that would actually work. So I wanted to show you one more thing. And that is quite a different project. And that is a project that I wanted to show you to kind of say that it's not all about it looking pretty. Beadwork can also be part of a more, how do I call it? Yeah, I have more conceptual art, more of an idea. So what I started doing is, so I made this, and this looks like weird, and it is kind of weird. So what I did is, this is actually quite a bit heavier than the piece. This is a ribbon that I make for every day since COVID started in the Netherlands. So I use a color which is a gray tone from white to gray, and a color. The gray is for the number of people that day who passed away from COVID, and the color is a color coding system I made for the number of people who actually got infected with COVID or tested positive that day. So this means that I started here in the middle, where we had, it's all white. So we had like very few people, hardly anybody passing away. And then we had also very few infections. So the first light blue was just one person. It all started with one person. Then we went into it increasing quite quickly. And here was our first wave. So we had quite a few people, dark gray colors. We had a few days with more than 200 people a day passing. And we were a small country. And then also the orange was more infections. And then it slowed down again. And then we had the summertime. It was all white and it was green, not going fully back to blue, but it was, and then it came back on again. And right now, yeah, kind of we're not doing very well. We're getting better. I started this still a week on this side. That is still there. We seem to have hit the peak, but that's another project I wanted to show you, which is very, very different. But it's also an important project to me. It is based on the people in the Netherlands who have both either been infected or who have passed away. So this is, I don't know how, I hope it doesn't last that much longer, but I will keep this up until we get rid of this nasty thing. So that is most of what I wanted to share with you. So my point is, are there any specific questions, things you wanted me to show you? Just let me know. I got one who says if it would be much longer if it would be for the US. That's not how it works. It's based on colors. So every day, no matter how many people get infected, is as long as the other one. I thought about doing it the other way, and I'm glad I didn't, because it would have gotten much. So it's the color that decides how much it is, not the length of it. So every day is pretty much half an inch of one color, half an inch of the other color. So I thought about it, and it's been going on quite some time now. So I think I haven't unrolled it in a bit, but I think it is about 7 yards by now. So I think it's going to be long. Pieces behind me. There we go. This is another beadwork piece I did. I think some of you have seen this. It is an egg crate. I do have a picture on my Facebook of it with eggs in it. This is made with, again, small components, individual warped squares, and there's a lot of color blending in this one. Each individual component has 3 rows of colors in it, some of them 2, some of them 3, and they are all, again, mixed colors. So yeah, that's and as you can see here, again, it's not one line of one color, one block of another. They kind of move around. So I'd say have fun. So that's the other one. Somebody asked, what's the 2 pieces behind you? Is there any other pieces? The other is just it's a storage system for some of the beads I have. They are buttons, tubes for buttons that I put my tubes in. And I'm working on another piece at the moment, which I'm not sure yet how it's going to work. This is inspired on the warped squares, and it has warped squares, but then the squares themselves are elongated. So it becomes egg crate-ish, but it's very flopsy. Flopsy is not the technical term, but I'll take it. So that's actually what's on my bead board as we speak, which I'll be getting back to. And again, this is made of different colors mixed together. So this, I'm not sure where this is going to go yet. As I said, I usually do plan out bigger pieces, but this one is just, I'm going to see where it goes. And then Peter was joking to me because I'm not completely sure. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And he said, well, just make a piece this big and then you'll know. I'm like, well, that could get frustrating. Because not everything works out the way I planned it. Sometimes it works out nicer than I planned it, and sometimes it's really not what I was aiming for. Coriana wants to know if the squares look like hexagons. They are not. So the individual, there you go. See, as I said, I have it on my bead board. So the individual piece is what's known in the bead world and probably in the world of people who know their shapes as warped squares. And then because of the way they are made, they curve up like this automatically. But the system of the technique is like the little leaves, is a combination of working in the round and adding 2 beads on the corners. And then I add a strip of peyote stitch on here to get them to connect like this. So that's what I'm doing here. Previous question about color choice. How does bead finish play in transparent, color lined, etc.? That kind of works, depends on what type of thing I'm working on. For example, for this piece, I decided to go for a lot of sparkly beads, and you can see it especially well in this light. But it's not 100% sparkly beads, but a lot of them are. For the other piece, there we go. I wanted the ends, especially this end, to be really sparkly and golden, but the middle bit, not so much. So I do like to combine the choices, and for pieces where it is mostly about setting one striking color like this, I use not too many transparent beads. So if I do use transparent beads, they're usually color lined or silver lined. So that's what I will be doing. I think that's about all we have time for today. What I am going to do is type in the chat the, I need to get rid of a few things. I'm going to type in where, if you want, you can continue to chat some more with other people. We're going to be we're a fairly large group. So the link I'm posting is the one that you also have in your email. Is the one where you can chat with groups. What will happen is I will close this one. You can go into the, click on the other link if you want to. You can do whatever you want. Don't feel like you have to. And you'll be paired up with probably 6 other people, and you can exchange ideas. You can talk about the weather. You can talk about politics or not. And then I will probably be hopping in different groups if I can. If you have any questions, you all have my email, so you're welcome to email me. And what I will do is, once I have the video online, I'll be sending out that video. And if I have any more interesting information or pictures, I will add that to it. So that's it for now. I will be closing this in a bit, because then I can close the other room. Thank you so much. I'm checking with Peter if he has copied the chat and the questions. Very good. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. It's always fun to look at your own work in a different way, because there's so much that goes on in your head that you've never explained to anyone. But now having to explain it is it helps me move on and try new things and see how my process actually works. So thank you very much, and I'll see you either in the meeting after or on Facebook or wherever. Thank you very much.